All right, it is 10:30 Pacific. Good morning, Montessorians, and thank you so much for joining us for another episode of our coaching calls. If this is your very first time, we are conducting weekly coaching calls. They start every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, and we walk through the process that we're calling the Montessori Marketing Method. And this is a process that Matt Hillis, the founder of Neato Marketing, developed and created in order to market his own school. And now we're passing it along to you. And the coaching calls go in sequence, topic by topic. Today's topic is um, a part of a larger whole, which is the ideal Montessori website. And today we're going to be talking about engagement tools. And with me here is Matt Hillis. Matt, thanks so much for joining as always.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Awesome. If you wouldn't mind, there's a chat pane on the right-hand side. So if you have any questions while we walk through this presentation, please feel free to ask. I think these conversations end up being far more engaging if we're able to field any of the questions you have about some of the tools and processes that we go through. So without further ado, I'm going to get started with the initial topic, which is the engagement tools we use to engage people on your website. And there's actually quite a bit that we're going to cover today. There's a lot of smaller items that we're going to go over in sequence. But the short version of long story is we want to make it easier for parents to use your site, and we want to make your site sticky. And so I'd like to pass this over to Matt. And Matt, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about why engagement is so important. Oh, Matt, did we lose you?
How's that? I'm sorry about that.
Nope. Perfect. Much better.
Got it. Um, so we are interested in engagement because we're spending a lot of time, money, and resources in order to get people to visit our website. This is the first impression that people are going to have about your school. It's not like it used to be, where people would stop in and visit as kind of a first step. For the majority of your parents, they're going to find you online first. And our job after that is to make sure that, just like Costume said, that we are as sticky as possible, that we are encouraging them to spend more time on the site. We're encouraging them to engage with us, whether that's, again, getting their email address, getting them to like our social media, all those different things where we can stay in touch with them throughout their decision-making process to enroll at a school.
One of the things that I think we need a change in paradigm is we tend to look at our website as a brochure. And I think this is especially true in the realm of education. It tends to be just kind of an information gathering um, asset instead of something that people can use. And a challenge I'd offer to all of our members is to look at your internal processes as you go throughout your day, and you have these things that you do. In many cases, not in all cases, the website can actually be used to supplement some of those things, even if they're back end, because there's so many great little plugins that you can add to a website, specifically WordPress website. So with that said, let's dive into the very first topic of discussion, which is Google Maps. And as an example, I have Bergamo's website pulled up. Bergamo does a great job of using Google Map integration, and I'm going to drag that over now. And Matt, would you mind talking about what you've done here and why you did it?
Sure. So for us, because we have 4 different locations, this was something that was essential because we are doing our digital marketing for the greater Sacramento region. And I want to make sure that at a glance, somebody who is in a specific area knows where the closest location would be to them. So for us, it was essential, but I would argue that for any Montessori school, it's going to be essential. One of the primary factors that people are going to use in their decision-making process is, what is my, what is the proximity to my home, to my work? What is my commute going to look like? We do have some families that drive up to 45 minutes to be at our school. We're the only AMI school in the region, and some people are really searching for that. That will be an anomaly. Most of your parents are going to be most within 10 to 15 miles of your school at maximum, preferably on some type of commute pattern if they're going into work for the day. So having an immediate visual about where your school is located they can do all sorts of other things with Google Maps at that point too, whether that's get directions, whether that's plan their commute in the morning, see how long traffic normally is taking. So for us, it is, and for most schools, I would say that this is a must-have.
And Matt has two forms of implementation. If you have multiple locations, you can actually have one map that shows all of your locations. And then if you have a single location, there's a single location implementation of Google Maps. And what's great about it is it's so much more than just an image of where you're located. It allows people to zoom in and out. It also gives them the opportunity to get directions directly from their home or office. Um, and from a technical perspective, what's great about using Google Maps is this acts as a layer of reconciliation in the eyes of Google. So Googlebot is always going to be crawling your website looking for information to determine how relevant you are, and not just determine how relevant you are, but to determine how clean your data is, where you're located, when they decide to refer to you in a search. When you use Google Maps, you're basically giving an additional thumbs up to Google, saying, hey, this really is our location. Our map location matches with the address that's on our website. And we have seen significant upticks in online ranking just by adding the Google Map embedment.
Absolutely, I've noticed that as well since I've started working with Cosm over the last couple of years. It has definitely increased our SEO when people are searching for a Montessori school, a preschool, a private elementary school in their area. We are showing up in that search, which again is important because we want to be as obvious as possible for people to find us. One of the other things that we're looking into that we haven't implemented yet with Google Maps is they now offer inside tours actually. So you have to book out a special type of photographer, but you can provide a virtual tour as part of Google Maps. That's something that we look forward to at Nido after we test that here in Sacramento to implement system wide for other schools, because I think that's again another added benefit. If somebody could click on your Google Map listing and then take a look at your classrooms inside, that's a huge selling point for Montessori schools. Our environments are going to be much more beautiful, ordered. I mean, it's a huge selling point for what we do, and I really want to be able to show that off as much as possible.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I think is great about Google Maps is it integrates with mobile devices. So if
Mm.
somebody's on their phone, can you talk a little bit about that, Matt? I'm sure you've had experiences where parents have used it directly.
Well, listen, we've all had experiences where we use that with other types of service businesses that we use. I mean, I use it a lot, especially when I'm on my phone and I want to be able to get turn by turn directions to where I'm going. So that has been very convenient for me when just as a consumer, not as somebody looking for a school. And I like to think of all the things that we do. I always like to use the paradigm, what would I like, right, as a consumer, not necessarily for a school, but for a doctor, or for a dentist, or for a florist. I find it so much easier to work with these other types of businesses when they have these things integrated. We should absolutely be following that lead.
Hmm. I'm going to close this. And I just want to bring up the fact that we have a course on using Google Maps inside of the Needles member area. Um, it's pretty robust. It has two tracks. One is a multi-location track and one is a single location track. And so it should suit everybody's needs as far as getting Google Maps added and walking through that process. It's very easy. I think
Mhm.
from start to finish, it should take about 30 minutes.
Yeah, and this is something that you absolutely should do. Don't be afraid of it being too technical. I mean, it is essential for the success of your marketing, and it is not an overwhelming task to do.
The next thing on our list is the Google Calendar. And Matt, I'm going to pass this right over to you because I know you know quite a bit about this topic.
Sure. So we use Google we use the Google Suite for all of our internal and external processes. So that's Google Calendar, Gmail, Google Drive, etc. So we already have everything built out on our Google Calendar, and once you've done that, um, there's a couple things that allows us to do. Obviously, we can put that on our website, which Cosm's going to talk about in a second. But even in our weekly emails, we have a link that goes out that's just standard in our weekly emails where parents can subscribe to our calendar so that it can show up as an iCal feed on their phone, so they can know when they're closed, when we're closed, right? They don't have to go in and put different things on their calendar. They can just pull up a layer of our school closures and events, and they'll automatically be plugged into anything that's happening. And also, it it allows them, again, it's just really an ease of use thing, because you can print out a calendar, put it on your refrigerator, but really parents are living and dying now by living and dying. That's kind of a funny way of putting it. They're basically living by their calendar that's on their phone or their computer. So making it easy to do, for them to add to their calendar, Google does that absolutely.
And I'm going to pull over the calendar embedment that you're using, Matt. What's great about this is parents can subscribe directly to your calendar, and this will add all of your events to their calendar, correct?
Correct.
Which is, I mean, that's pretty amazing to be able to do that with one click. They now get to see everything that you're doing for each location.
Well, and what's awesome about it too is that when we change anything on that calendar, it changes on their calendar as well. Um, if you happen to work at that miracle school where you never have to change anything on your calendar, this may not be for you, but for the majority of us that live in reality, right, there's going to be some things that are automatically updated on their calendar too, which is very, very helpful.
And I think Google does a really good job of making this very engaging and interactive. You can have multiple events in a single day without it being too messy or cumbersome. We can view week and month layouts. They can see pretty far ahead, which is cool. And then it saves you a layer of redundancy because you're not trying to manage an internal calendar and an external calendar.
Correct. So we have multiple calendars that we use at the school. This front-facing one is public, the closures and events. But then we also have internal calendars that we use for our teachers and our staff that parents do not see, that keep us on task for all of our internal processes.
And as everyone can imagine, we have a course on using Google Calendar and embedding Google Calendar on your website. Um, Again, this is not overly technical. It takes, I think, about a half hour to embed the calendar on your website. And, once done, you have it forever. So I strongly recommend walking through that process.
Correct. The challenge of implementation is very low. What I have found is that our challenge was getting all of our staff to start to use that. So that will take a little bit of tenacity on your end if you need to make a kind of a culture shift for that. But once you're on it, it really does save you a lot of time.
And what did you do for that specifically, Matt? Did you have like internal training or just a batch and blast email for your staff?
Well, I mean, some staff members were able to get on that quite easily. In fact, they were probably already using it. Other staff members were not, and weren't as excited about that transition. So Google does have great training on basic use of calendar, like how you use that on your phone, how you want to do that. I know that's a little bit separate than what we're talking about in the course that we offer. Our course is basically how you're going to roll that out for your school's website.
Hmm.
But in terms of the day-to-day use, Google does have a pretty good video training that's free that I was just able to forward to people and set an expectation that, hey, starting in September, we're going to start using this. If you need some knowledge base to refer to in a training, this is what I need you to do.
Understood. One last thing I'd like to mention about the Google Calendar is it integrates perfectly with Calendly, which brings a lot of our discussions full circle,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool. All right, next on our list is the Facebook feed, which you have on your site, Matt. Can you speak to the engagement here and some of the benefits you've seen?
Sure. So Facebook, love it or hate it, is here, and it's used quite a lot, especially by women who tend to be making decisions for early childhood programs. So this is something that is essential for us. You can see that straight on the. In fact, I think that on all of our blog posts, you can actually like um, like the post and share it directly from Facebook without having to jump into another ecosystem, which is nice. But it provides another way of promoting your content. So once we're writing something and putting that out there on our blog or on our internal parent blogs, we want to be able to put that out in as many ways as possible to people so that it's kind of spread out over the network. Facebook is free. People are on Facebook, and it's something that I think is essential to do if you are marketing an early childhood program.
And I'd like to share this example. Here's a blog on your website, and here's the Facebook embedded tool, which allows people to scroll through your feed and like your Facebook page. Here's the tool you mentioned where they can share directly from the blog. And then here at the bottom, you're using Facebook comments. Do you see a lot of comment engagement?
So this is that post right there was not something we post on our front facing blog. I believe that was on kind of a page we have for a blog post we have for parents. It really
Mhm.
depends on the content that we are promoting. So some of the blog posts on our main blog section have thousands and thousands of shares on Facebook, which is really encouraging. Um, some don't. It really and but that's actually a great indicator for us about what is the best type of content to put out there. It gives us more information to help us write better content in the future.
Absolutely. And again, this takes, I think, 15 to 20 minutes from start to finish to embed a Facebook feed on your page. One of the other things that I think is really cool, and maybe even maybe even a little intrusive, but Facebook will show you who else likes this, which
Hmm.
gives parents the opportunity to see who else might be going to your school.
Correct. As an aside, we have started using. I know we're not talking about this today, but we have started testing out uh, private Facebook groups for our parents. And the reason we did that is because, parents are going to want to connect with each other, whether you provide the forum to do so or not. And we felt that it was better to own that forum, to be in control of that forum, than have people create something on their own where things can sometimes go off the rails. So maybe that's something we could talk about it in the future. But I think a private Facebook group for parents that are enrolled at your school is something that you should consider.
Absolutely. And we actually have that on our course schedule as soon as you've finalized your SOPs internally.
Perfect.
Click to call enablement. Now this gets just a tad bit technical, but it's really worth talking about. Um, if we go to Bergamo's site, you'll notice that Matt, you've got two phone numbers here in the header.
Hmm.
And what's cool about both of them is if you're visiting from a mobile device specifically, you can just press this with your thumb and it'll call you, right? It queries the phone's onboard calling tool.
Correct. So we have two different phone numbers up there because we operate in a region of Sacramento, and within that region there are two separate area codes. Both of those numbers are forwarded to the same number for just ease of use, so they're not going to two separate places. But it really does make a difference if you're on a mobile device. I'm not necessarily sure that people would, if they're on a desktop, they're going to see the phone number up there and they'll probably open up their mobile phone and call. But if they are searching you on your mobile device, and more people are, in fact, I don't know, I don't have the stats in front of me, but wouldn't surprise me if 40 or 50% of our visitors were on mobile. When they want to contact us, they can just tap that button and it calls. Again, it saves them a step. They don't have to get out a piece of paper, write the phone number down, then open up their calling feature and then call us. So it is something that I would absolutely recommend. Again, what would you want as a consumer? Our job is to make it easy for parents to contact us, to stay engaged with us, and this is just yet another tool to do that.
Absolutely. Just out of curiosity, Matt, do you know which one of these numbers is more popular?
The 916 is a much larger area code within our region.
Hmm.
So yes.
Um, in order to enable click to call, it's a small piece of code that needs to be added to your number. Now, what's really cool is most mobile devices can identify a phone number without this code, but some cannot. And so you may need your web developer's help here. But the way to enable this is you'll notice that there's TEL colon and then the phone number. And you actually don't even need the plus sign here. And this is added to the phone number the same way a hyperlink is added to text. And so I realize this is just moderately technical. It's not anything that you need to remember, but what I'd recommend doing is talking to your webmaster, whoever is running your website, and asking them anytime the phone number appears, they just need to add that code into the phone number. And you'll notice that my browser right now is asking me to pick an app so I can call this number. If I'm on my mobile device, it'll just call it. It'll choose my phone's onboard calling. But I think this is important because it makes it so much easier for people to reach out directly and call you without having to type it into their phone.
Custom, is that built into the functionality of the website that we offer?
There is a WordPress plugin that does click to call enablement, but I
Mhm.
do believe that it needs to be a manual addition. But I know on the sites that we've built, it's built in.
Got it.
Yes, sir. But that's something we have to do by hand. It's honestly a little frustrating. There's so many nuanced things that you just need to make sure you're taking care of, which is why we do these calls. It's why we build these courses.
Absolutely. And, interestingly enough, ever since we implemented Calendly and ever since we have prominent schedule a tour buttons all over our website, our phone calls went down dramatically, which is awesome, right? Because that's less work for us to have to do.
Mhm.
It's easier for the parent to do things online and to schedule tours and ask questions online. So it's a good thing for us that our phone calls went down. We still want to give them the opportunity to do that. There are some people that still will walk into our school to inquire, but it's getting less and less the more we've implemented options for people to contact us online rather than by phone or in person.
And Matt, did you ever make a decision around the answering service called Ruby?
I didn't. It's something that's on my list. Cosmo and I have talked about using an external call answering service to answer our phone calls. I'm not I'm not sold yet that it's worth the expense because again, our phone call totals are going down, and it is an added expense for us to do. But I was attracted to the idea of having the phone answered consistently. Again, 4 different locations can be a little bit difficult. Um, Having the phone answered consistently in the way in which I would want it to be answered. But no, haven't made a decision about that yet.
Sure, just curious. The last thing I want to say about click-to-call enablement is it does have SEO benefits. We've seen uh, from a ranking factor standpoint, it's small, but it's noticeable that when you make your contact information visible to search engines, it tends to help improve your overall organic visibility. The FAQ sections, Matt, you have quite a few FAQ sections on your website.
I do. So we have 3 different types of FAQ sections. We have an FAQ about our school, we have an FAQ about Montessori, and we have an FAQ about admissions. This is actually something that I think that we haven't done a great job at actually. I think that we haven't updated as much as I would like to do. Again, when I go into websites, especially when I'm looking for some type of service that I'm going to be using, I love FAQs because it helps me get answers very, very quickly. And again, it's a frequently asked question, right? I'm predicting the questions that people are going to have. And when you get into things about Montessori, there's tons of questions about what this looks like, especially when you start talking about emissions. What is required? What is the tuition going to be? What is my commitment going to be? So this is something that I think we could do a better job at in terms of beefing that up. It um, hasn't really been updated as much as I'd like it to be. We do have a feature that's built into our website that allows people to ask their own questions. And when somebody submits a new question, that's automatically added to the FAQ. So that was kind of a nifty little tool um, that I'd like to lean on a bit more in the future to build a more robust FAQ.
I love that it has a method of organic growth. The
Mhm.
fact that people can submit new questions and then you just automatically add that to your frequently asked questions. I think that's great.
Sure, and even using this for as part of your autoresponder, right? So when people are inquiring about the school, having a link built into that pre-populated email about do you have here's a link to the FAQ, because we assume that people will see this, but they won't. Not all of them will, and we want to remind them that it's there because again, it saves them time, and all this does is with an FAQ, with information that's going out in email in advance, we want to prime that pump so that by the time they're coming in for a tour, we're not spending our time talking about questions that we could give them, answers in advance. We want them to be observing. We want them to be getting a sense of the school and kind of having a specific feeling rather than thinking about getting answers to questions.
Absolutely. And I think this could fit in very nicely in the new parent page that we've been discussing building,
Absolutely.
which is actually it came to us from one of our members. Um, Grateful to them. Very next on our list is placement recommendations. Um, all of these items are important, but it can be a little overwhelming if you try to fit them all in on the homepage or the blog page. So, Matt, if you don't mind, let's talk just briefly about where you would put some of these elements.
Well, so I'm not going to put um, most of this on the front homepage, except for uh, well, I guess that the Facebook newsfeed is on our homepage. I'm trying to get people to take a specific action when they're on our homepage, which is either giving us their email address for a lead magnet or for scheduling a tour. But as
Mhm.
they start to get into the different subpages, obviously the locations page is something that people go to, the about page, and then Casa, maybe you could show the footer because I'm not exactly sure where that is on our site in the footer.
Sure. Uh, in the footer,
Ah, there you go.
we have links to Google Maps, and these are actually images that let people know what it is they're going to receive once they land on the site.
Yeah, so that's actually really good context for me because so on the footer of our homepage, you're able to quickly see, that we have a location in Woodland, two in Sacramento, one in El Dorado Hills, and the phone numbers associated with each of those. And again, that's going to be a very quick, you know decision matrix, for lack of a better word, if this is something that they're interested in. We have, if a family is in San Francisco, they're going to come to our site and they're going to say, oh, they don't have a location in San Francisco, this isn't something that I'm interested in pursuing, which is great for us, again, because it saves us time. We're to the point with the number of tours that we have where I'm really much more interested in pre-qualifying people as much as possible, because we can only give so many tours, and I want to make sure that I am able to give those tours to people that are mission appropriate, to people that have a good chance of enrolling. So all of this stuff helps to make our missions director's life much easier in terms of her workload.
Awesome. And I just wanted to mention, I think the new parent page that I mentioned came as a recommendation from Susanna, who I think is on this call. So, Susanna, thank you so much for submitting that. I wanted to make sure that I gave you the proper recognition. The Google Calendar, Matt, where would you typically place that? I've got two notes, parent portal and about pages. Anywhere else you think that's appropriate or applicable?
Well, I believe there's a calendar link on the very top. So in the header of our website, there's a link for calendar up there.
Hmm.
And again, that's because, when parents are coming, we want them to be able to find it easily. So that has all the different calendars for the different locations. And then obviously on our parent portal and parent pages, our parent portals are not password protected. So the only thing that we are password protecting is our school directory. And we did that because we were experiencing such, oh gosh, it was just very time consuming when people would forget passwords and trying to help them get the information that they needed. And it's much different than it was even 5 years ago, when people's expectations of privacy. We're not putting anything on our parent portal or parent blogs um, that are extremely private. And so we felt that it was appropriate to make it as easy as possible for parents to access that without a password. But the things that we absolutely need to protect, like contact information, does require a password in order to download.
Hmm. And we actually took the parent portal off of our list of discussion topics today just because it's so uh, item specific for every school. Right, Matt? Can you speak to that just briefly? Why it's sort of tough for us to plant a flag in the ground?
Yeah, I mean, I've never had success with parent portals, and I'm not a huge proponent of them, just because I think that they're cumbersome, and the work that is required to do them versus the level at which people use them, that's not really congruent for me. So it's like it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and then sometimes I feel like parents don't necessarily use them. My sense about this is that if you put as much information in the weekly email, that is what people are going to use the most. They're going to open up their Gmail. They're going to go back and find, they want to get the directory, for instance. Um, they they're going to go back into their email and look for the most recent update that we sent. We send emails out on Tuesdays to all parents, and we just include a link in every single email that goes out weekly to download the parent directory. So it's again, I think email is a much better way, at least for us, to be able to manage this. Um, and that has worked better for us than a parent portal. Although I will say that there are schools, especially larger elementary schools, I think, where it is appropriate. And we do have a lot of elementary students, but for us, it wasn't necessarily something that I saw a huge benefit of immediately.
Hmm. That's good context, Matt. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
That ends the discussion about these particular items. We're no longer conducting these coaching calls on Facebook Live, incidentally, because we had some audio issues that we just could not resolve with Facebook's tools. So everything right now has been relegated to Easy Webinar, which I prefer because I think it's a better ecosystem. So if you have any questions for us, please feel free to drop them into the chat. And while we're waiting for those, I'd love for Matt to introduce the next topic. Matt, we're talking next week about program information, specifically what content needs to be included for each level of Montessori education. Do you want to speak to that just briefly?
Yes, absolutely. I spent a lot of time thinking about this over the years. Um, and we have gone through many different incantations of what we put out there in terms of program descriptions. And, this is, I see a lot of Montessori schools do this, and we used to do this as well, where we would put out, you talk about Montessori primary, and if we're going to list, in the past, we've seen, well, in the past, we have had a lot of information on there about Montessori, about the different areas of Montessori, practical life, mathematics, sensorial, for instance, in primary. And what I realized was that that really does not have any bearing on what when parents are making a decision to tour your school. Again, we're not trying to get married immediately when people are coming to our website. We're getting them to take a specific action. So I really took the view of we want to do the parent education about the specifics of Montessori as part of the admissions process, but not necessarily on our website because I thought that it was a turnoff. And so when you look at our website and you look at the program descriptions that are on there, there's a lot of bullet points, there's a lot of headlines um, that tend to answer the questions that they have, but leave a little bit lingering for the details. And that, in my opinion, is the best way to approach it because I want people to be able to digest things and get the high points. But when we're talking about those details, those are much better explained in person in parent education classes that we do before and after enrollment, rather than putting that on a website.
And we actually have some content that was written by a Montessorian specifically for your website, and we'll be providing that content in the resources section for our members. But the first release will be on next week's coaching call. So if you have any interest in being privy to that as an asset, strongly recommend joining. We'd love to have you. And if you have any questions about that, you can always submit questions in advance. As a matter of fact, I think it makes it a little easier for us because we can sort of prepare our answer and maybe even have some specific assets in return if we have time to create them. So really grateful to everybody for showing up. Matt, anything that you'd like to say in closing?
No, well, yes, I do. I want to say a couple of things in closing. We're purposefully trying to make this content that we're doing every week bite size. And a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from people is, again, where do I start with this? We got so much information. I don't even know where to begin. So, these weekly office hours are going to be a little bit more truncated than, a full course on something. And really what our goal is to help you digest this. And then when you need to be able to start those things, we have those assets available on Nido for you to go in and get that detailed information to take those classes. And again, we're always here to help you and assist you when you're implementing it. But the purpose of these calls is to give you the general overview in a bite-sized way that you can digest.
I think it's so well said. And one of the things I'd love to point out is that we have a community forum available that more and more people have been using recently. But I would love for that to become an asset that everybody draws upon because, in addition to these coaching calls, there's a whole wealth of knowledge just in our member base. And so after the call, if you have any questions or even opinions, we'd love to see the conversation move over to the forum. I think that's the perfect place for it.
Oh, and what's really cool about the classes as well is that after watching each video, there's a comment feature in the video that again starts to create kind of our own FAQ about it. So it's like if you're watching a video on Google Maps and there's a 6 video series as part of that course, if you have a question about anything that happened in that video or you're unsure about something, you can comment right below it. It goes directly to us. We can answer it right there, and then it lives where that video is. And so the next time that somebody else is coming in, they can see your question and our answer. So it gives them more context, and it helps more people to be better at this.
Absolutely. Matt, as always, thank you so much for your time, sir. Grateful to you.
Really, really, really happy to be here. I will be. I'm not sure what our plan is for next week because I'm going to be out of the country for a couple weeks, so I may be off the next couple phone calls. And I come back from my trip to Thailand, which I'm super excited about, in early July. So if I do miss you in the next couple weeks, please know that I am still around, but I'm taking some time off before we start to get ready for the new school year starting in late August.
And I forgot to address that, Matt. I'm so sorry. So that actually means that the next topic is the program information, but we are going to wait for Matt to come back in order to speak about it because he's far better equipped than I am. So the next few weeks, we are going to revert back to our traditional office hours, which means I'll be jumping online, fielding any questions anybody has, discussing some of the previous content we've put out. But the coaching calls and the Montessori marketing method will continue when Matt returns.
One thing I will say about that is that with the office hours, with kind of ask any question to Qasim, you have, I've talked to a lot of different people in digital marketing over the last 5 or 6 years, and you will not find somebody who has more information and who is more helpful than Qasim. So really use that. Right? This is a time that we're starting to work on our projects for the year. If you have any questions at all about any type of um, digital marketing problem, conundrum, anything, what a great opportunity for you to have Costumes here for an hour a week for free.
And I pay Matt to say that. So thank you, Matt. Awesome. To all our members, thank you so much for watching. We're really happy that we're able to serve you guys, and can't wait to see where this goes.
Absolutely. Talk to everybody soon.
All right, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.